Welcome back. This is Sandy with Sandy's Organized Chaos, and today we're going to be doing this super easy pumpkin PeekaBoo tumbler. As always, I'll make sure to put everything I use today down in the description box below so that way you guys can shop those items if you would like to. If you're new to my channel, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, and let's wake up, prep these tumblers, and slay all day. Let's do this. Starting off with our base, I am just going to be utilizing the stainless steel color that already exists on our stainless steel tumbler because I'm going to be using a silver glitter. So all I'm going to do is go ahead and prep my tumbler by giving it a good sand. And then I'll go ahead and wipe away all the debris that might have accumulated after sanding it. Then I went ahead and mixed up 10 milliliters of epoxy, and we're going to go ahead and apply all 10 ml straight over top of our plain stainless steel tumbler. So the reason why I'm using a lot is because I'm going to be using a chunky glitter, and to make it a lot smoother for me and the process go a lot quicker and I don't have to fuss too much with it, I use more epoxy than normal so that way all those glitters lay flat for me. And the glitter I'm going to be using today, or one of the glitters I'm going to be using today, is called Sugar Plum. This is going to be going on our main base here. And of course, all the glitters I am going to be using today, you can find at socglitters.com if you would like to. Now we are just doing a full application coverage with one glitter. So I'm going to go ahead and do the bottom, and then I'm going to come up and do up around the rim. And then of course I'll come through and fill in that center portion, giving us that full coverage of our glitter. And of course, after that's all done, I'll come through with my opposite hand and push back all that glitter up around the rim. And then I'll come through and tap down any glitters that might be sticking up. Again, this is just going to make that process so much more simpler when we go to epoxy or everything, and you barely have to do any sanding after you get that epoxy over top. So I'm going to go ahead and set that off to the side and let that cure. Now, because I did add a little bit more epoxy than usual, I do put it on my turner to cure, just so that way nothing slips around on me in the process of curing. And after that cures, we're going to go ahead and apply our first coating of epoxy over top of the raw glitter. I do spray it down with a sealer spray, and that's just going to help out with wicking away of our epoxy, and it'll also help out with micro bubbles and all that. So that's why I just do that as a precaution. Now I'm using a 20-ounce tumbler here, so I'm going to do 20 mLs of epoxy over top. Now, after you get this onto your turner and you feel like it's going to need another coat of epoxy after this is cured, go ahead and put another coat over top, making sure that you have a nice smooth surface to work with for our next round. Now while that cures, let's go ahead and get our decals put together. So this pumpkin silhouette isn't exactly what I had envisioned that I wanted to go on my tumbler, so I'm going to go ahead and show you guys how to make up your own kind of silhouettes when it comes to doing it like this. So the first thing we're going to do is have our pumpkin, and we're going to apply an offset around it. And you don't want to bring it down too close to it, but you want it pretty close to it. I think in the end I ended up doing 0.042, I think is what I did for my offset. And once I get that on there the way that I want, I'm going to go ahead and click apply. So what you're going to be left with is the kind of silhouette portion, which is what we're going to be using to mask off for our PeekaBoo. So I'm going to go ahead and actually duplicate this because I need one for masking off for our PeekaBoo, and I'm going to need the other one for the outline of our pumpkins after everything's all said and done, so that it has that cool pumpkin outline look. So the next thing you want to do is go ahead and put that pumpkin back over top of one of the offsets, and you want to highlight it and make sure everything's back into center, because what you're going to do next is you're going to again make sure everything's all highlighted, and you're going to slice your pumpkin out of the gray pumpkin, and what is going to be left is that outline that you're going to want in the end, so that way everything has that cool outline look to go over top of our PeekaBoo. So you could leave the outline as is, so the stem would be that silver underneath as well, but I didn't want that, so I'm going to actually come down to contour, and I'm going to fill in the stem. So when it goes to get cut out, all you do is go into contour and click on it, and there you go, it's nicely filled in. So that will be all vinyl rather than having an outline around it where the silver will poke through. So now you should be left with your silhouette from masking off for our PeekaBoo, and the outline portion for after everything's all said and done. And then for the quote, it came exactly like this. I got it just like this right off of Creative Fabrica. And then you just want to apply an offset around it. I believe it was 0.028. I did my offset around that. And there we go. Now the sizing I did is For the quote, I went ahead and did 3.24 by 3.08. For the larger pumpkins, I did 3 by 2.9, and for the smaller pumpkins, I did, there we go. I did 2.01 by 1.94. That's pretty much where it just landed. I didn't unlock it or anything, so wherever it landed, and the height is wherever it was going to land on the width. So now I'm just going to go ahead and cut everything out. So for the bigger pumpkins, I did 4 bigger pumpkins and I did 6 smaller pumpkins all together. And you're just going to cut out the silhouettes and whatever vinyl, you know, that you don't care about. And then the offset portion I did in a pretty teal. And then for the decal, I did in a pretty pink with an offset of white. Okay, our tumbler is all cured and we're ready to get our PeekaBoo going. So I'm going to go ahead and take those bigger pumpkins and I'm going to stack those on top of each other, just kind of making them go either way. I kind of liked how one stem went one way, one stem went the other. And then I just completely flipped it around and I added 2 larger pumpkins straight onto the back side. Now, after I add my 2 larger pumpkins on, I want you guys to see, I just kind of rock my finger back and forth so that way it doesn't get too many bubbles going on it. So then after that, I went ahead and stacked on my smaller pumpkins right in between. Now, when I get this side done, I flipped it over and actually only 2 pumpkins fit on the other side because those 2 larger pumpkins could have been shimmied just a little bit more to make all 3 fit, but it is what it is. So I ended up putting that pumpkin on the very bottom. Not a big deal to me. I still like how it looks in the end. So now we're going to go ahead and take it outside and we're going to spray paint over top. The color I'm using is called Sweet Pea and I'm just going to give that a good spritz of this color. I ended up doing about 2 coats of this all together. So after I spray this on, I'm going to let that dry completely and then we're ready to move on to the next step. Now, after that has dried, we're going to go ahead and pull back our pumpkin silhouettes, exposing our glitter underneath. Now, you just want to be very careful. You don't want to scratch the outside of your paint. I do sprinkle glitter over top, which I'll be showing you guys here in a minute, but if you scratch it, you might be able to kind of see it. So if that does happen, all I do is I take a little bit of my spray paint and a Q-tip, and I'll just get the Q-tip wet with some of the color that I used and just dab that over the spots that might have got scratched. And that's just an easy fix for you guys if that accidentally happens. So after that's all said and done, we're going to go ahead and come through and apply our outlines over top of our pumpkins now before we apply our epoxy, because our pumpkin outlines are going to go inside of where the paint line is. So it's touching the epoxy surface. So I feel comfortable enough to go ahead and apply those outlines now, knowing that nothing will lift after my epoxy gets applied. So I'm showing you this part, which I typically don't, of me weeding these because I accidentally pressed record now when I didn't want to record, and then I stopped recording when I went to go apply the pumpkins, okay, the outlines of the pumpkins. So all you're simply going to do is line up those stems right inside of the stems that we created for ourselves in our silhouette, and you're just going to apply your offset in that manner. It should be as simple as whenever you want to put the silhouettes down for the PeekaBoo portion is how easy these outlines should go on over top for you guys. So you want to go ahead and get those outlines applied, and then we'll move on to the next step. Okay, our outlines are applied. I know you guys got this. It's looking beautiful. You're doing great. So now I have about 15 to 20 milliliters of epoxy that I'm going to go ahead and put over top of everything. And then we're going to go ahead and get that onto our turner, and we're going to start adding a little bit more magic to our pumpkins. And of course, every round of epoxy we apply, we make sure we hit it up really good with our torch, popping all those little micro bubbles, especially this time of year when it's getting cooler out. It's going to get a little bit harder for those micro bubbles to rise to the top. So make sure you're doing a good job with hitting it up with your torch there to get those little micro bubbles. All I simply do is about 3 rounds of rotations and then I'm done. I don't want to apply too much heat. That's all you got to do. And then we're ready to move on to the next step. So again, I just wanted to add a little bit more whimsy to my surface here, and I have my glitter here. This is called 50K, and I'm just going to take pinchfuls of that, and I'm going to go up in between each one of these pumpkins. I don't want it to go over top of the pumpkins too much. I kind of more wanted it like a fairy was flying around the pumpkins and releasing its pixie dust. That's pretty much what I imagined as I did this, okay? So you don't have to imagine that, but you know, whatever works best for you. So you just want to take pinchfuls of that and just kind of go in between until everything looks great and you're happy with how the outcome is. You don't have to apply too much. You can apply a lot, a little, however you feel it should look, because there is no right or wrong when it comes to making art. Then I decided I wanted to add a little bit more, so I'm going to take Slay All Day. Again, these glitters are from socglitters.com if you would like to use them. These, you know. And I'm just going to come back through and I'm going to, again, just take pinchfuls and just kind of go right over top, kind of mixing these colors and making these lines a little bit more pronounced. So since we are sprinkling glitter over top of our epoxy, that means that this glitter is going to be raw glitter and it's going to need another coat of epoxy over top of this before you apply your decal. So after this is cured, you want to go ahead and come through and apply another thin coating of epoxy over top, and then we'll be ready to apply our finishing decal. So sparkly. I could look at that all day. I just absolutely love how this turned out so far. All right, so now that that has cured, we need to go ahead and come through and we are going to clean up our rim. And this is the point in time where we're going to also come through and kind of give anything a little sanding that might need it, up around the rim, down around the bottom if it needs it. You don't want to sand too far down because you don't want to accidentally destroy the paint job that we have done underneath for our PeekaBoo. So just be careful when you go to do that. And then after you get done doing that, you want to go ahead and wipe off any debris, and then we're ready to add our decal. So when I went to go add my decal, I like to do it in portions. I'm going to do the offset first, and then I will come through and apply the darker pink over top of it after the offset's on. That's just easier for me. You guys can layer it on before you do it, however you feel comfortable to do it. So all that's left to do after you get your decal on is apply your last 2 finishing coats of epoxy, and she's ready for some pumpkin picking. Whether you take this design and duplicate it as is, or you take it and let it inspire you to create something that is completely your own, I hope that you guys had a lot of fun watching this tutorial today. Again, if you're new to my channel, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, and I will see you guys next time.